July 10, 2026 is defined by 8 distinct headlines, events that span meteorology, central banking, and international diplomacy. These represent an integrated system of active maneuvers, each designed to secure India's strategic autonomy and build resilience against external shocks. This framework follows a 3-tiered architecture: domestic macro stability at the core, tech and energy sovereignty in the middle, and global positioning at the perimeter. Today, the inner ring includes inflation and biodiversity governance, while the outer rings hold critical minerals and space technology. For a strategic analyst, the value lies in the intersections. Identifying how these rings influence one another is the standard for high-level civil service evaluations and advanced interdisciplinary thinking. Starting at the core, the IMD's July 9th update confirmed that the southwest monsoon has physically covered the entire Indian landmass. However, the Madden-Julian oscillation is currently in an unfavorable phase, projecting a severe rainfall deficit over western and southern India. This delay directly impacts rain-fed agriculture. In states like Maharashtra and Karnataka, the sowing of cotton, soybean, and maize has begun to slow. The heat map on the left shows the dry zones. The graph on the right tracks the resulting economic pressure. Consumer inflation is projected to reach 4.3% in June 2026, breaching the RBI's 4% target for the first time in 16 months. While core inflation remains steady around 3.95%, the headline figure is being pulled upward by the specific weight of the food and fuel baskets. The Monetary Policy Committee must now manage the repo rate, currently at 5.25%, to maintain its targeting framework without suppressing growth. This demonstrates that macro stability is not solely a function of interest rates. It requires supply-side, climate-resilient contingencies managed at the district level. Shifting to the outer rings, Prime Minister Modi met with Prime Minister Albanese in Melbourne on July 9th to accelerate the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. This alignment targets the security of physical assets, lithium, rare earths, and defense industrial supply chains. These nodes in Australia represent the start of a supply chain for nuclear power and advanced chemistry cells in India. The export of Australian uranium is strictly conditioned for peaceful use, verified by the lock of IAEA safeguards. Critically, India engages in this trade despite not being a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, relying instead on the specific waiver granted by the Nuclear Suppliers Group in 2008. These imported raw materials feed directly into the domestic push for advanced chemistry cells and localized battery manufacturing. Under the Battery Waste Management Rules of 2022, extended producer responsibility applies to all battery chemistries, requiring manufacturers to manage the recovery of these minerals. Recovering lithium and cobalt through urban mining completes the loop, insulating India's energy transition from concentrated global supply chain shocks. In the middle ring of technology, signals from satellites are frequently distorted by the turbulent, ionized layer of the upper atmosphere near the equator. The Indian Institute of Geomagnetism has addressed this by merging ground-based ionoson data with cosmic radio occultation from satellites to reconstruct the topside ionosphere. This modeling is vital for the accuracy of NAVIC and LEO satellites, as generic global models cannot capture the regional dynamics of the Indian ionosphere. On the ground, the 91st meeting of the NBWL Standing Committee balanced the clearance of over 100 infrastructure projects against strict environmental mandates. The committee included the pygmy hog in the Species Recovery Program, identifying it as a primary indicator for the health of the subcontinent's wet grasslands. Conservation strategies also focused on power line collisions for the Great Indian Bustard and the use of DNA indexing for rhinoceros protection. Strategic growth is incomplete if infrastructure projects violate the ecological corridors and Schedule 1 biodiversity that sustain the region. In the outer ring of diplomacy, the BRICS Women Ministerial Meeting concluded in Kochi on July 9th under India's 2026 chairship. The outcome was the adoption of the first-ever joint statement under the BRICS Women track. India utilized this forum to shift the policy framework from women's welfare toward women-led development, focusing on entrepreneurship and digital inclusion. This included 2 structural proposals: a digital repository of best practices and digital capacity building guidelines. By sharing these domestic templates, India positions its digital and financial inclusion models as a standard for developing economies across the BRICS network. Strategic autonomy requires an interdisciplinary understanding. These 8 headlines are not isolated events. They are interconnected nodes in a single architecture. Australian mineral diplomacy directly supports domestic battery circularity, just as NAVIC accuracy ensures the precision of the infrastructure cleared by wildlife boards. The most effective analyses look past individual headlines, use macroeconomic data to explain geopolitical shifts, and apply scientific models to justify governance policy.
That is the architecture of a resilient strategy.